Welcome to the live stream. I hope you're feeling fully alive. It is, I don't know what keeps you alive, but yeah, coffee is my crutch. Even sometimes later in the afternoon, yep, I'm one of those. Are you one of those? 5 a.m. to about 5 p.m., a regular drip. It was, it was National Coffee Day. Somebody tell me, when was that? Was it Monday? Probably. I, yeah, it was Monday. Yeah. Today's October 1st. Happy your enrollment should be finalized day, right? Now, I was on the campus of Northern Arizona University. Go Jacks, right? Look at that. They were just doing a special edition collab with, here's this little plug, Matador Coffee out of Flagstaff. Huh? That is the coolest. Jacked coffee. Hmm? That's the medium roast. I got some dark roast coming at you too. There's some free advertisement. I think, yeah, Flagstaff makes Arizona beautiful. Those people that live in Arizona know, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm loving all my AZ people. Yeah, strong headwinds if you're in public education in Arizona. Dukes are always up. If you've got somebody that is excelling within their systems in a state as red as Arizona, I give you a double thumbs up. Yeah, it's just a little bit harder. I happen to live and lead in a very education-friendly state, and I don't know. Most people here would say there's a heck of a headwind as well, but it's just a little more difficult, I think, in the public domain. I'm not going to get into that. The topic today is not red versus blue. I'm kind of a purple guy, anyways. I'm a raging moderate. How about that? If you're ever wondering, what side of the political aisle does that? I'm a freaking raging moderate. That's what I am. Let's remember that. I need to tell you about a coaching session that happened. It was last spring, but it just jumped to mind, and kind of can't stop thinking about it because it has some tether lines connected to some other conversations that I've had here recently. This was on a Zoom with the campus president, a brilliant woman. Not going to say her name, but she has given me permission to at least share the theme of what we're talking about here. This is a 15-year veteran working from the office of the president. Her leadership experience was really, really tight. And she also genuinely cares still to this day about her people. We're supposed to be working on some strategic enrollment initiatives with her SA team. I'm not the funnel guy. I'm not your strategic enrollment management guru, but I do know how to have those teams communicate a little bit better with each other and accelerate some of the capacity building that must happen within that very, very important team. Anyways, 5 minutes into this, she just stops mid sentence and says, "Hey, can I show you something?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And she holds up this letter on camera, just holds a resignation letter from her academic dean at the time. And this just wasn't just another dean. It was a person her faculty really trusted, and the one who could really navigate a lot of the programmatic pieces that were challenging and being resisted, but they were moving the ball forward. The leader everyone was assuming was going to be the next VP and the next president someplace. And then my client read one of the sentences from that letter that I haven't really been able to shake. It was something along the lines of, I've been trying to signal, I've been signaling to you. Now, this person didn't report directly, but had ears to the tracks, right, about what was really going on. But he had been working to signal to the president for 9 months that the faculty are they're kind of at this breaking point. But every time he would bring it up, the conversation really just shifted to enrollment numbers and just the donor cultivation. And so he, he just stopped bringing it up. So my client then just looked up to me and on the screen and said, "Hey, Joe, I thought I was being strategic. I thought I was being like leader like, keeping us focused on our institutional priorities, but apparently I was just not listening." Um, I don't know if you can relate to that. Then she asked me this question that changed my perspective. She said, "How many other people on my campus have been trying to tell me things that I desperately need to know?" And if that question just made your stomach drop, that's what I want to talk about today. Sometimes we're a bit too strategic, aren't we? After reading that resignation letter, I actually read through it. I asked my client to do something really, really vulnerable and uncomfortable. I said, "Pull up your last 5 cabinet meetings. Now count how many times someone tried to raise a concern and then track what happens next." Because her admin was scripting all the, yeah, we went through the minutes together, and we actually were able to put our finger on a pattern. There were 14 separate moments where someone started to share like some warning signs or some concerns that felt like friction or tension. And 14 times the conversation got redirected, usually by at the head of the table, right? Towards solution, towards strategic priorities, or just positive reframing before the concern was really fully explored. I just wonder how often that happens unconsciously with us. Yeah, she wasn't trying to shut people down, honestly. Good person. She cares deeply about just the humanity on her campus. She was trying to be the leader who it just keeps everyone focused and optimistic and forward thinking. And but research here's from the University of Chicago shows that educational leaders, they interrupt their teams on an average of every 87 seconds during meetings. The leader sitting at the head of the table interrupt every 87. Think about that. How much truth can you actually tell in 87 seconds? Then you know an interruption it's a coming. So we tried an experiment. I asked her to reach out to 3 members of her leadership team with one question. What have you been trying to tell me that I haven't been ready to hear? Powerful. Take a moment. If if you're zeroing in right now, just write that down. What have you been trying to tell me that I have not been ready to hear? So she trusted the CFO, so she beta tested there. The CFO responded within an hour. Our adjunct faculty retention crisis, it's not about pay. It's about respect. They don't feel like members of our internal community. Then she took it to the VP of Student Affairs. It took a couple of days, but they're busy people. They're just busy people. The person said our mental health services, they're so overwhelmed that we're triaging. It's yeah, we're doing the best that we can with our students, and mention this in 5 different meetings, but it's always the thing that kind of gets tabled indirectly or directly. The dean of enrollment never responded. But hold on. Um, so my client actually just called the dean directly, and after some probing, the dean finally said, "Yeah, I've kind of learned that bringing problems without solutions gets labeled as not being a team player. So I'm just not bringing problems." Here's what matters. When you have healthy groups with skilled listeners that solve complex problems, it happens usually 3 times faster than groups dominated by real strong voices at the head of the table. I hope you heard that loud and clear, boss. It's about the collective health of your team to solve problems. And oftentimes the leader actually just needs to back off a little bit. Yes, I said that. And if that makes your stomach hurt, that might be good medicine for you. In higher education, where every decision affects student futures, we can't afford to be good talkers anymore. But we have so mastered that, haven't we? I mean, I'm thinking back 20 years ago, or I wish I could listen to this live stream 20 years ago, talking head at the head of the table. Yeah. We have to become extraordinary listeners. And that is the new skill set in this whole AI dominated crazy terrain that we're entering into. Let me tell you why this happens, because my client, phenomenal president, still is to this day. And it still happened to her. You know, when you have a president facing enrollment pressures, budget constraints, board expectation, your brain is releasing, squirting all that cortisol into the blood, just creates stress, that stress hormone, right? It literally narrows your attention span and makes you scan for threats. You're just looking for the saber tooth to just pop through the glass door coming instead of helpful information, right? So really, in that exact moment when you most need to hear what your team is telling you, your biology is working against you. Yeah, that's brain science right there. Not even 101. It's just basics, just basics. My client said something that really got me. She said, "I realized I've been treating my cabinet like a crisis response team, and there was a time when that was needed, right? Instead of a truth-telling community." You know, every meeting became about triage and action items, and no wonder why they stopped sharing the messy, complicated realities. But there's always hope, isn't there? Um, I love, love, love. I love just how real Brene Brown is. And I love how real her research is. Just pulled that up. That leaders who practice that generous listening is what she calls it. Generous listening. They create teams that outperform their peers by like 75% on complex problem solving. So how do you become a generous listener? 76%. That, it's not through better strategy. It's just through listening differently, right? So here's my question for you. What if the biggest problem on your campus isn't enrollment or retention or budget? What if the biggest problem is that your people already know how to solve those things, but they don't believe you really want to hear it? I think there's a I think there's just a big heavy boom. That weight just hit the floor. Your team, they know how to solve the problem, but they don't necessarily believe you really want to hear it. I don't know. Tough pill, perhaps. So here's what we did in our coaching engagements that ensued. I asked my client to try something that felt almost reckless. I said, for the next cabinet meeting, your only job is to listen, and no agenda, except understanding, right? Seeking to understand. She looked at me like I'd suggest that she cancel commencement, right? She said, "Joe, I have 17 action items on the board. You know, who doesn't? I can't just not lead. I get it. I I felt it." I said, what if the most powerful things you could do is discover what your people already know about solving those 17 things? So she scheduled what she called a listening cabinet for her PC. She had an LC. How about that? Yeah, 90 minutes long. This isn't a template that says, oh, you have to do this, but that's what she did. It contextualized nicely in her world. There was no formal agenda. One question on the whiteboard, actually. What's happening on our campus that I need to better understand? That's it. That's the essential question on the board, if you will. What's happening on our campus that I need to better understand? And then she sat down. In the first 20 minutes, she said, were excruciating, long. Okay, the 8-second rule in terms of just wait time. Tried nearly 20 minutes. Awkward silence. Finally, the VP, must have been that extroverted VP of academic affairs. She said, "Are we really doing this?" Because if we're really doing this, I got a few things to say. And my client, the president, just nodded. We're really doing this. And then the floodgates just opened. That adjunct crisis was creating a two-tiered system students could feel in their experience. The mental health situation was creating this liability exposure and turning just resident assistants into unlicensed counselors, and the enrollment challenges. It just started to, all this stuff just started to build and roll and build and roll. Uh, yeah, it wasn't most of this was about just campus culture where prospective students could sense the stress, and tour guides and everybody else that had touch points with students. My client didn't defend. She sat there. She didn't explain it away as she normally, as that brain would tell her to do. She didn't solve. In her mind, she was probably saying, I'm not leading right now. She just kept asking, tell me more about that, and writing notes. By the end, her legal pad was covered in notes. She closed with, thank you. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for trusting me with this. She said, I'm going to think deeply about what you've shared. And then everybody expected this to just be a one and done. But 3 weeks later, honestly, she came to me giddy. She said, Joe, we just had our most productive budget planning session in my entire presidency, because we're making decisions based on reality, not assumptions. So here's what I want you to do before this stream ends, and we're going to come in for a landing. This will be a short one today. I want you to pull up your calendars right now. Maybe it's your Outlook, your Google Calendar. Maybe it's the old Franklin planner, whatever you're dealing with. Find 90 minutes, okay? Go just poke around, sniff around. Where can you find 90 minutes in the next 12 months, right? No, find 90 minutes this month. Happy October 1st. Right? Find 90 minutes. I'll say in the next 2 weeks, let's keep this fresh and label it listening cabinet, or something that you would rather call it. Then send this message to your leadership team. Ready? Are you ready? Send this message or something close to it. You know, I've been reflecting on my leadership and I realize I might be missing important realities about what you're experiencing. I'm going to invite you in for 90 minutes where the only agenda is my understanding. I'm going to ask one question. What's happening here that I need to better understand? And then my job will be to listen. No problem solving, no defending, just me trying to see our institution through your eyes. Yeah, cut and paste that, folks. Cut and paste that. Because when they start telling you things, your job is to just shut up. Not to explain, not to reassure, not to solve, just listen. Write down what they say. Ask follow-up questions. Help me understand, or tell me more about. And when they're done, thank them for trusting you with this. But the minute they stop bringing you just conflict is the minute they don't trust you with the conflict. So don't try to like sweep all conflict away. I would say that's warning, warning, warning. Also, warning, this will be uncomfortable. You'll hear things that trigger your internal defensiveness. And if you have that, uh, I'm not going to mention a name, but I worked with the provost for a couple of years who had just a tell. And it was a big old red blotch that would show up on the neck when 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 her heart was racing and she just wanted to chew somebody's nose off defensively. Yeah, you'll want to interrupt. You'll want to give context. All that discomfort, that's the gap between who you think you are as a leader and how your people experience your leadership. Okay? That might be your biggest gap on campus right now. Trust me, there are a lot of very, very accomplished leaders that have loads of experience and maybe even those big fancy awards that you've earned, but haven't learned to listen effectively. And you're hiring great people that want to work in your system, but they're feeling either overpowered or disempowered. So closing that gap is how you go from good and highly awarded, right, to exceptional. And really somebody that I would say is going to be part of the building of our next frontier of how we keep education alive in this next century. So, right now, somewhere on your campus, there's a dean who knows exactly why your retention initiatives aren't working. There's a department chair who probably can tell you which faculty members are about to leave, and there are student affairs folks, professionals who understand why your best students aren't that engaged. And they're not telling you. Not because they're disloyal, but because sharing hard truths with you feels riskier than staying quiet. Every day you lead without creating space for those truths is another day that just solvable problems become another crisis. But when you become the kind of leader, honestly, who genuinely listens, Brene Brown genuinely listens, everything changes. Your team starts performing for you and starts more collaborating with you. Your decisions are going to get better. Your retention improves, and your students get the benefit of that collective intelligence of every person across your institution. So the question isn't whether you're a good president or a superintendent or a boss. You are. No, give yourself a patty on the back. The question is, are you brave enough to hear what your people already know? One meeting, 90 minutes, zero agenda except curiosity. Pull it off, boss. Your people are ready. And the question is, are you? So if you want to um, that exact protocol, the question, the timing, the follow through, uh, grab. We can grab a little virtual coffee together because I can unpack this even more so. So you can send me a direct message. You know where to find me in LinkedIn. It's primarily where I'm hanging out. We can find a virtual coffee. That's complimentary. Okay, we'll have a little coaching conversation to explore what this could look like for your within your specific context. Because what happened here probably doesn't seem or weave specifically or exactly into your exact context. But honestly, I don't think you need another protocol right now. You just need to send that message and show up with some genuine curiosity. I'd love to jam with you, honestly. Your students are counting on you. Your community certainly is counting on you. Not to have all the answers, boss, but to be the curious one, the one curious enough to find all of them together. So, Duke's up for you. Keep listening.